Thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate your attendance. This is our interdepartment collaboration within ProLinkHFA webinar topic. So we will go ahead and get started here. I'm going to cover some general information first before handing it off to Jim for our live demonstration. We're going to be covering property onboarding and ProLinkHFA asset management and compliance at an overview level. I'm Kreuter. I'm the Executive VP for ProLink, and I'm joined by Jim Paris. He's our sales engineer, and he'll be handling a lot of the live demonstration today. Going into general information about ProLink. So we've been in the affordable housing industry. Most people logged in today, from what I can tell, are familiar with ProLink and have attended these webinars in the past. But we have been involved in the affordable housing industry since the late 90s, going into the early 2000s, I think, with our first client who was Virginia Housing and is still a client of ours today. So a long track record at this point in the industry, and we've seen a lot of things. We've really expanded the use cases of ProLinkHFA to meet those holistic business needs over time, which has resulted in really focusing us on our mission to help our clients solve the affordable housing problem in the United States, and trying to build a system that unifies all the different pieces of building affordable housing through especially LIHTC. So we work with all of our modules and continue to improve and add to those modules to create a holistic solution for your needs from that very beginning stage of working through kind of initial concept with developers and application, all the way through your ongoing asset management and compliance. Our clients span across state and local housing finance agencies. Obviously, that's a huge piece of what we do, working with our agencies who are allocating tax credits. We also support the tax credit syndicator and investor side of the business. So we support a lot of the large syndicators in LIHTC. And then also working with some developers, especially on Procorum, which has also expanded in use cases over the years. As more and more developers have used that platform to work with state agencies, we've found some use cases to help them out as well. So our team, we're technologists, we're a technology company, we're passionate about that. And I would say everyone, it's kind of part of our interview process to have some passion around affordable housing and the mission that we really try to represent and support every day that we're working. So I'm really proud of the team that we have. A lot of longevity at ProLink at this point. After 25 years or over that in the industry, we have a lot of tenured folks here at ProLink, which is a great testament to the way we run our business and the dedication of our staff to our mission. A few stats here that I like to update everyone on a regular basis. We support 17 state housing finance agencies currently, 2 supportive services agencies, and 5 syndicator and investors. I think that's 6 now, with 1 going through implementation. We have industry partnerships with NCSHA and the NAMA XML Standards Group. So NCSHA puts on their conferences on a regular basis, which we're a part of as a sponsor, and we collaborate with them. Really, any opportunity we can get behind in supporting industry events or education, or discussing, ways to implement technology to improve data management in affordable. We really try to support those initiatives with NCSHA and other institutions like it. Industry education. So this webinar series is regular. We've been hosting our ProLinkHFA webinar series for a number of years now, and it has been consistently growing in our audience, which is wonderful to see. Originally, it was an opportunity for us to connect when things were very remote and NCSHA was not having in-person meetings, and it's really evolved into an opportunity for us to talk about industry news or industry concerns that we are also looking at as a software company, and demonstrate some of our functionality that we might not otherwise have the venue to present to our wider kind of audience. So it's been really tremendous in providing feedback and news to our clients and anyone else who might be interested in ProLinkHFA. We've also had a number of inquiries come in through our clients who might reach out asking for examples, or we might share a Smart Docs template or something like that we've used as an example in one of these webinars, and they think it's a great template they want to use in revamping something they're using in-house. So there's definitely some benefits that we've seen outside of the original intent of this webinar, and I'm excited to continue to evolve this over time. We have a Procorum training series as well, which is we use our webinar platform to host. It's a little more seasonal and focused on our owner agent audience. It's really kind of geared that direction because we have such a large audience at this point who use Procorum to interface with our state agencies. So that series is going to return in the fall. Please stay tuned for some announcements on those future events. We have our ProLink Tech Live, our ProLink Technology Live conference. This is coming up in late October, so we'll be releasing the dates officially very soon, as well as kind of a preliminary schedule agenda of what we plan to do over the 2-day virtual training event. We open this up to general audience, so anyone who might be interested or supporting ProLinkHFA in connection with our state agencies, you're welcome to join, and we will be sharing a lot of information on how to register for that shortly here. And then finally, we have our in-person user conference, which happens in the spring. That was, I think I announced over the last couple sessions, something we brought back this year after a few years off for in-person, and it was just such a wonderful experience. We got a ton out of it and feedback related to ProLink's roadmap and the direction we're taking with some of our larger feature plans. So thank you very much for that involvement from our client base. And I look forward to updating you on how we're going to accomplish some of those goals. Last, we have our technology leadership area. Again, we are an Amazon Web Services kind of foundational software vendor. We use AWS for many of their services and have a strong partnership with them, as well as DocuSign, which we implemented in one of our products called ProLink Plus. And it is something that we will continue to do. ProLink's philosophy is use best-in-class technology as much as we can, and where it makes sense to interface or integrate with our systems to provide you with the best-in-class tool you can really have in affordable housing. So that's our philosophy. Don't reinvent the wheel for everything. Use the best out there. This is just a quick image that also kind of illustrates the agencies, the 19 in total that we're representing across the country, which is very exciting. And kind of, yeah, we handle from coast to coast at this point, which is great. And I work in a lot of different time zones, and I know this series in general, think it meets business hours across coast to coast, and which is kind of tough to do when you're reaching that far. But we welcome any feedback. If you have any trouble or if you hear feedback from staff that they would like to attend this series and time is an issue, please reach out to us with that feedback as well. We're definitely starting to head into the later part of the year where we're going to be planning our series for next year, and we welcome that feedback. And then finally, we have our technology stack. So this is just kind of a bird's eye view. I like to kick us off with, especially for those who might be new to ProLinkHFA or may not be using it yet. We have 3 pieces to our ProLink technology stack that ProLinkHFA uses. We have our back office system, which is, we call it ProLinkHFA, which is the system that agency staff is logging into and working in every day. We have Procorum, which is our kind of front end platform and interface for external parties and collaboration. So that's where you're going to be working with developers. You'll be posting your application and receiving that completed application through Procorum. You'll be managing the intake of tenant events from owner agents through Procorum. You work with contractors, attorneys, anyone who's really involved in the process of putting that deal together and getting it to the finish line, and then continuing with the management of that property. That all kind of happens in Procorum. And then the last piece is Smart Docs, which isn't represented on this screen, but it is a Excel and Word add-in tool that allows you to really send that information seamlessly between ProLinkHFA and Procorum. This is a quick picture demonstrating and just highlighting the main modules within ProLinkHFA. There's a whole host of kind of features, maybe not large enough to qualify as a module, but certainly features that are not listed here that we also support. The main pieces, though, are our multifamily development and bond financing module. We have our asset management and compliance module, and then our single family development module. You can see supportive services, REO, and a tool called Budget Pro represented over on the left. Budget Pro is used more for construction draw management. And then we have many others as well that are not represented here, but certainly something that we'd be happy to share in future webinars, or you could inquire with us about. Okay, and with that, I'll kick it off to Jim. The only thing I would preface this with is we have been kind of going along a deal life cycle storyline over the summer. So starting in May and going into June, May, we really discussed the application process using Smart Docs and Procorum to facilitate that application process. And then last month in June, we talked about arranging and setting up your development team on the dev module once those applications are received and that data is underwritten and decisions start to be made. And Jim's going to continue on with that storyline today, talking more about asset management and that handoff from the development stage. So Jim, I'll hand it off to you now to continue with that, and I'll see you guys at the end of this webinar.
Thanks, Bree. I appreciate it. So yeah, today I'm really going to be kind of focusing on, one, post-closing, how the data that's put into the origination modules, our tax credit and development module, translates and moves over to our asset management and compliance module, and really what's available in the system for all teams within an HFA to work together and have kind of visibility into what the other department has done or is doing. As the sales engineer here at ProLink, I work with a lot of potential clients who are evaluating systems, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we get is a lot of agencies, compared to the other options out in the market, think that we do a very good job, not only providing solutions in our suite for development, tax credit allocation, asset management, compliance, but we do a good job of kind of holistically providing those in a way that breaks down silos a little bit between departments. So I'm going to be focusing a lot on how information can be shared from one part of the agency to another, and then I'm going to kind of end things out with an introduction to the compliance module, which is going to be our focus on the Q3 webinars, and just kind of to give you an idea of how important it is to get that data in there during the origination phase of things. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to get into ProLinkHFA. See, it is screen 2. All right. So first thing I wanted to kind of go over is how does a deal kind of tie to the property? Because in ProLinkHFA, when I create a deal, a lot of the kind of application process, tax credit allocation process, and origination process in general is going to be done in that module. So there's going to be kind of a deal record that's worked, as you guys saw on the last couple webinars. And then once that's placed in service, it's going to move over to an asset management module through something we call a portfolio property record. So how do these two tie together? How can you kind of, link these two and share data between the two? So you're not duplicating data entry and you're not kind of leaving the asset management compliance team in the dark after you close out that deal and place it in service. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is when I create a new deal, what it's going to ask me to do is it's going to ask me to associate it to a portfolio property. Right now, you can kind of immediately see it's saying, hey, if there's no associated property that already exists in the system, we're going to create one for you if you click this box. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use 102 South Palm Avenue. I'm going to click. Actually, I'm going to sign all the required fields first, but then I'm going to click search. And what this search is going to do is it's going to look for similar properties. So it's going to say, hey, Jim, this property name, this deal property name is similar to a property record that you already have in ProLinkHFA. And what this allows you to do is you kind of link those two together. And then once you go into the deal, it's going to be pretty easily accessible to see this property as you're working the deal. And I'll kind of show you how that works. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to create this. I'm going to associate this with this property. I'm going to click save. And now you can see I'm in this deal. It's a new deal, but now my portfolio property is going to be linked to it. And on top of that, when I go into the portfolio property, there's going to be a field that links it back to the deal as well. So we're giving the origination team, as well as the asset management compliance team, the ability to kind of quickly go back and forth between the tax credit deal or the development deal to the property and back, so they can kind of easily see what the other team did or what the other team might have been working on back when it was handled prior to placed in service. I'm going to go to another property here. It's got a few deals linked to it. So it's got a blended deal, which was a tax credit allocation, as well as a dev deal, I believe for home. And then there's also like a rehabilitation deal in here as well. So you can see under agency activities, now that I'm in the property where my asset manager is going to work out of, that I easily kind of have access here to the associated deals that kind of led to this property being placed in service. Next thing I'm going to kind of highlight is our portfolio property data update utility. So as a deal is worked in the system, what you can do is you can easily update certain fields in the portfolio property record that were updated in the deal. So let's say, as I was working on this deal application, a few points of data were changed, maybe new entities were added or something like that. What I can do is I can go into this data update utility. I can search a portfolio property. I'm going to use 102 Park South again, or sorry, 102 South Palm. I'm going to go into here, and you can see, I've got values that were filled out into the deal that were not filled out in the portfolio property yet. Typically, this utility is used like once you go placed in service, but you can really access it at any time. So it kind of compares my data points to the deal value compared to the property value. And what I can do here is I can select all of the fields and update them, or it can kind of be selective if I want for whatever reason. I want to update one thing, but not another. Also entities, if I click this, it'll import all the entities from the deal into the portfolio property, which is, makes it a lot easier than having to recreate my entities in the portfolio property as the asset manager once I get that property placed in service. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to replace. I'm going to fill in these fields. I'm going to click update portfolio, and it's going to populate all these fields over in the property as well. So fairly easy tool to use to help you kind of move data from that deal into the portfolio property, so your asset managers aren't having to duplicate a bunch of data, after you've worked that deal. Alternatively, what I can do is I can actually transfer property data into the deal. So I can do the reverse. It's going to be in another screen. You can actually do it right from the deal. So I'm going to go into South Palm Avenue, my new tax credit deal over here. And when I go into portfolio properties, it's gonna show that portfolio property again. And if I click this box and hit copy, what it's gonna do, it's gonna give me the ability to pull in information that might already exist in that portfolio property record into that deal. So things like entity information, location information, stuff like that. If I click copy, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to copy a lot of that information over here. Next thing I'm going to kind of go into is I'm just going to kind of like emphasize the importance of why is it important to populate data into the portfolio property? Why is our asset management module important to have filled out with this information? For one, property entities, I can have a better idea of who is involved on this. I don't have to duplicate all of this information. If I use that utility, all of this would be pulled over from the deal, and then I could kind of easily see who is involved in this, who is the developer, who's the management agent, things like that. So if I go into here, I can pull up information like the individual contacts here. And another great thing that Entities does that kind of helps us kind of tie together origination and asset management is you can see here all the deals this entity is related to, as well as the properties that they're related to. So if for whatever reason you need to contact this entity, you can kind of clearly see what else are they associated with. Maybe there's something that I'm working on related to another deal or another property. If I have them on a phone, I can look this up and kind of discuss anything else other than the main reason I called them. But as far as asset management and compliance here, I'm going to focus on kind of some of the biggest examples of why having data filled out in here is really important. So I think really the biggest thing here is compliance, especially if you're dealing with most of you are dealing with LIHTC deals. So my building information, compliance is going to be tracked at the bin level within ProLinkHFA. So I can manage these buildings, and it'll keep track of pretty important compliance information in here. A number of units, and then tax forms. This is where kind of like 8823s are managed. I'm going to go into how you kind of evaluate tenant events and compliance reviews, and then I'm going to go back here and show you how to generate an 8823. but most things are really compliance related, are managed at the building level in here. So it's really important to have that data, filled out so you can monitor compliance. I'm going to go to compliance reviews. So compliance reviews is, I would say one of the more important parts of portfolio properties. So in here, this is where you can do kind of that tenant event review. So here's kind of like my results of the compliance review. And I have like an exception history log. So, any issues that I found with the data that was provided to me will be displayed here and outlined here. And these are the tenant events that were submitted to me. I know there's a lot of data here. One thing I'll say is, don't get overwhelmed by this. There is a way to retrieve this data pretty easily from the property manager or the owner agent. And that's through the Associated Work Center and Proquorum. For those of you who don't know what Proquorum is that portal that we provide to allow you to exchange information with external partners. So if you're on the development side, that that would be receiving the application from the developer, things like that. And if you're on the asset management or compliance side of the organization, that would be primarily the biggest use case is going to be communicating with those property managers or owner agents. But here in our tenant income certification tab down here, we have our we call it the tenant portal. One thing I'll note is this name can be customized. You can call it whatever you'd like, depending on the terminology your state uses. But this is where the owner agent can go to start to submit that data to you. Go to view events, and then it kind of lays out all of my bins. And if I break this down, it'll kind of lay out all my units. There's a couple ways they can fill this information out. If it's a smaller property, without not that much tenant data, it typically does make sense to go in here and kind of just fill out the information manually, if that's how the owner agent or property manager would like to do it. So I can go in and I can add a tenant event. I can edit this 2021 recertification if I want, with the information that I need, like type of event, is it a recert, move in, move out, etc. Type of unit it is, date, household income, and all this other data down here. Household members, household income, income from assets. That's all kind of managed right within this tenant event record. But the bigger thing here is we're of course dealing with some pretty large multifamily properties with hundreds of tenants, maybe thousands, where kind of going in and typing each one manually is just not a feasible process. So what we've done is we accept XML files based on the NAMA XML standard. So these larger properties, basically they're all using some kind of property management system like Yardi or RealPage, where they can generate an XML file with the data that we need for tenant event reporting. So what we've built in here is an import tool to import that, to consume that XML file that can be provided by the property manager via that property management system. So if I go here, I choose the file, I'll upload my demo XML file. And what it's doing is it's kind of consuming and reading this XML file, which outlines all of the data on each of the tenant events for this year. And as we wait for this to import, what I'm getting prepared to show you is, After this import is done via this XML upload tool, what happens is it sends the party that's submitting this data to a validation page to kind of check um, if their data makes sense and is complete. So if there's things like, a unit is missing data, it'll point that out. If there's things like, hey, you're marking something as a recert, but it's actually different tenant than last year, you should go look at that and fix that. Incomes are off, things like that. So I'm going to go back to 2021 units. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to validate that data I just uploaded. So if I go validate this, I have submitted new information since the 12th, so I'm going to validate it again before submitting it. So now you can see I've got a few things where it just kind of doesn't make sense, right? A move in can only follow a move out or a transfer out. So I'm going to go to these 3 units. It's going to let me fix it. I can fix it on the XML file and resubmit, or I can go and I can fix it manually. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put, just for purposes of making this work, I'm going to mark them all as recerts. Now, if I go back to this screen and try to revalidate, it should come back with the green check mark. Okay, so now I can go ahead and submit all these tenant events to the agency, knowing that there's not going to be, any errors in the data. And then it comes back here, and me as the agency gets this data, and I can kind of look at the compliance of this data. Are the is everything in compliance with the LIHTC rules? If there's not, like if the applicable fraction hasn't been met, or there's problems with minimum set asides, it's going to outline that and where it is. And what you can do is you can do things like export it, send it back to the property manager and Procorum, and kind of get this resolved. As far as 8823s, based on this data, you can go back to the building, and at the bin level, you can issue your 8823s. So go to tax form on the bin and go to this 8823 I created. I can create the IRS form. It'll just download a PDF for me. And then I can use Procorum to send this over to that property manager or owner agent. One last thing I did want to share. We're going to have like a more detailed training on this next week. But it's our HUD export utility. So this export utility, it allows you to pull the data that you need for HUD reporting based on everything I just showed you in that compliance review section. So if I go to HUD export within the property, it's going to kind of summarize what from the property is going to be in the HUD export. So, the project, details about the property here, the bins, all this information is going to kind of go into that global file that I'm going to show you in utilities here in a second. So if I go to utilities, go to my HUD export utility, this is where I can kind of like do like, I can run that data globally across all the portfolio properties. That last screen was kind of a summary of what was going to come from that specific property. But I'm going to have things in here like my missing data report. So this is going to tell me like, hey, there's data missing from X property or Y property. You should fix this before generating the actual XML file you might use to go report to HUD. So I'm going to download this. Move it over. So here I'm getting like a breakdown, it's kind of running the engine to show you, all right, I've got a lot of properties, tenant events haven't been submitted, there's missing requirements on compliance review. It's going to give you a summary of like, hey, this stuff needs to be fixed, before you really do anything further. Next thing I'm going to go into is this project XML file. So this is going to break down all the YTech properties that are placed in service or resyndicated placed in service in this data collection year. So here I have, this full XML with all of these properties that I have to report on. And then I have my no longer monitored XML file. So, this would kind of break down all properties where it's a YTech compliance program and the compliance end date is within this data collection year. So here I got a couple that are going to be no longer monitored because the compliance program has ended. Oh wow, I just logged out of ProLinkHFA on accident. I just closed my browser. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the export utility. And the last thing I'm going to show you is there's a tenant zip file in here too. So this is it's going to be a zip file, and within it is going to contain a bunch of XMLs with the tenant data in them. So here, this one's a lot longer of an XML file because it does have that detailed tenant data on it. And that's why it's a zip file with a bunch of XMLs. That's kind of an overview on the HUD export utility. Again, there's going to be more training on it, I believe, starting next week. I think Sam from our marketing team, can you put that link in the chat maybe and share it with everybody? But
yes, I did already.
Yeah, hopefully this, HUD data export, running those compliance reviews, I think are pretty good examples of why it's really important to take advantage of the functionality of the system to help populate that data in the asset management compliance module after a project's gone through origination and placed in service.
Thanks, Jim. Anything else you want to cover before I take back over?
No, I think I can give you 5 minutes here to wrap up.
Okay, so let me share my screen back to just our overview slide deck here. Yep. So as Jim mentioned, we do host trainings. It's actually part of our user group where we host quarterly trainings for our users remotely. If you are not a user of ProLinkHFA currently, but you're interested in attending our HUD export HUD reporting session next week, that we've just posted the link to. Shoot me a message if you don't mind. I'd like to just help kind of get you set up, since you would be more of a listener than a walking through as they're demoing. So I'm happy to include you. Please let me know if you'd like to join, and then also you can go ahead and register through that link in the chat that Sam shared. The only other update I have is we have our separate from the training next week, which I think it's about an hour and a half training next week in total. Separate from that, we'll go into our next webinar for August, which we're going to cover 8823s and validation in the ProLink compliance module. So, compliance is kind of starting to become a preparation topic amongst our clients and their partners. So we're going to start to look at that in more detail, and compliance. We're switching now from kind of that storytelling we've been doing over the summer of that deal life cycle. We're going to focus now that we're coming into compliance on hot topics really related to that module. So for this one coming up in August, September, and likely October, our sessions will focus around compliance. So please share this series with those at your agency who are more invested in that part of the business, and we'd be glad to include them and share what we have to offer. So thank you very much. That will be August 14th at 2 p.m. I believe Sam's already probably shared the link to register for that one as well in our chat. Just pay attention to the title, since there's 2 registrations now for you to consider. They're a little bit different with next week's and then the August webinar coming up. Very much appreciate your attendance, everyone. It's great to connect with you, and please reach out to us if there's anything more that we can help you with, or if you have any feedback for us about this series. Have a great rest of your week.